Previously on The Great Game, we saw the beginnings of a new conflict as the Shoshone teamed up with their ancestral brethren, the Comanche, to declare war upon the Shawnee Confederation under Tecumseh. Although overwhelmed by the combined forces of the Shoshone and Comanche, the Shawnee have not capitulated yet, and they remain steadfast in their defenses as well as adamant in their offenses, with the Comanche city of Jupe having taken some damage. Moving on, we see that the historic settlement of Magdeburg, which has been on the front lines of the Yugoslav invasion for centuries now, has finally fallen to partisan forces. Despite this monumentous occasion, with the fall of Magdeburg signifying a victory for Yugoslavia in this conflict, at least thus far, they do face new enemies as Ukraine has declared war. With all that out of the way, and as we come back from this significant hiatus we had in the previous 2 weeks, let's move on to the episode. Hello everyone, welcome back to another episode of The Great Game. My name is Kazia. It is so wonderful to see you here once again. Now, I want to apologize for the numerous delays this episode has faced. I have simply just needed a break, and perhaps I should have been more clear about that. I apologize. Moving on, we see that the Shoshone are still invading the Shawnee territory, and the Shawnee are putting up a very strong defense. However, it looks like their numbers around Chillicothe are overwhelmed. I simply do not see a way for Chillicothe to hold on for too long, but they do have a prize in this war as they have taken the Comanche city of Jupe. We also see to the east, the United States of America, led by President Theodore Roosevelt, has declared war upon the Shawnee Confederation as well, and they have a significant force marching towards the city of Mequachake. Over in Europe, we see that the Karelian resistance movement is fighting harsh against the Soviet invasion. Having previously lost the cities of Utua and Aunis, Karelia is, not the biggest fan of Joseph Stalin. And yes, we do see that the city of Kimasharvi, the Karelian capital, has taken damage as well. Over in Central Asia, we see that the Apsherid city of Nahāvand is facing a bit of a minor incursion from Khanty forces to the north. This is one of those smaller conflicts that I really want to give attention to, as well as the Yemeni and Bugandan conflict over in the Red Sea. While some viewers may not see these wars as particularly relevant, I like to think they give a great idea into the expanding diplomatic connections between every civilization in this world. This brings me to a point I want to discuss, which is that this series, while I do frame it as a tournament and that I want there to be this sort of team aspect of people rooting for certain civilizations one over another and having a bit of team unity, there is also a bit of the historical fiction aspect. So, as we gaze upon this dwindling conflict between Goryeo and Mongolia, we must wonder, what are the circumstances that has brought this war to its close? We see the beginning of a brand new war as Haiti, under Papa Doc de Vallier, has declared war on the United States of America under Theodore Roosevelt. My personal perspective of this war is that I think America, in a twist of fate, actually sank one of the many Haitian ships, thus escalating into a larger scale conflict as Haiti has declared war. As we pass through Europe, let us move on to Asia to see that Mongolia is taking some serious damage in the city of Nalaik, as Qin forces under Emperor Zheng, or Qin Shi Huang, are brutally tearing down the walls of this ordu, which is the traditional Mongolian term for a horde or encampment. As Nalaik takes some serious damage, so too does the Karelian capital of Kimasharvi. Joseph Stalin wastes no time devastating the city as Soviet forces throw themselves against the walls in a desperate, violent offensive against the Karelian forces. We see in North America that the Comanche and the Shawnee front of the Great Plains War, as I shall call it, is continuing onwards as conflicts outside of Yampirika intensify, and we see that the Comanche are attempting to retake their city of Jupe, while the Shawnee maintain their defenses around the city. Very quickly, while we have some time going over East Asia, seeing that Mongolia is still fending off against Goryeo and the Qin armies, I would like to give a special shout out to the Civ Battle Royale today, because I'm hoping on the day I release this that this will be one of the first days of voting for Civ Battle Royale's Season 5. This is one of the main inspirations for the great game, and I highly recommend you go to their subreddit to check it out and vote on which civilizations you would like to see. Of course, a link to the voting thread and voting registration will be linked in the description below. Turning over to Europe, we see Volodymyr Zelensky's Ukraine is continuing their offensive against Yugoslavia and the city of Skopje. While my hopes for Ukraine are fairly high, I do have to consider that they are fighting a two-front war, as they are also fighting against the Ottomans under Orhan. Still, this is a very impressive army that Ukraine has put together, and I think they stand a very good shot of taking the city of Skopje. Turning over to Australia, we see that the Motu and the Bonuba are fighting on both land and sea. The Motu have instigated this war by settling the city of Elevala on the mainland Australian continent, and thus the Bonuba, as colonial resistors, are not a huge fan of the Motu currently. And as we go through Australia's turn, we can see the city may soon fall. We turn very briefly over to Europe to see that Yugoslavia is putting up a very meager resistance to Ukraine's offensive, and the city of Skopje could very likely fall within this war. It doesn't seem like it's taking too much damage yet, however. Of course, Yugoslavia did take the city of Magdeburg previously. In South America, we can see that Brazil and the Makushi are still at war. They've been at war for a while now, but neither side has really made much progress, except for Brazil has made gains to the south in Argentina. I personally think that the Makushi war against Brazil, whether they succeed or fail, is a very critical conflict to shape the geopolitical nature of South America. We see that the Motu take their turn, but their defenses near Elevala are just too meager, too weak to defend the city. While we're in North America, I want to point out the diversity of the Shoshone army. We see that they have archers, they have chariot archers, they have warriors, and they have spearmen, all heading towards the Shawnee city of Chillicothe. We also get a good look at how America's offensive against the Shawnee is going, and how the Comanche are still failing to do anything of note against the Shawnee. I personally am not 100% sure how this war will turn out. I don't know if America can take the city of Mequachake. I do think the Shoshone will be able to take the city of Chillicothe, and I have no idea whether the Comanche will be able to retake their city of Jupe. Whether the Shawnee succeed or fail in their defense of the Great Plains territory they have thus far, I don't know. I simply think this is a very critical conflict in the Great Plains region of North America, and I am excited to see how things develop further in the region. Hey look everyone, it's Karelia. They're still defending their territory. Nothing much has changed in this conflict. I do think, of course, Karelia has a slight advantage now. They have a new great general right near Kimasharvi. That said, if they are unable to defend Kimasharvi, that will give the Soviet Union an early lead in terms of victory with 2 capitals, their own and Karelia's. Meanwhile, we get a good look at Buganda in their various conflicts with Nigeria, Yemen, and I believe they're still at war with Lesotho. Turning over to the Gobi Desert, we see that Goryeo is trying to maintain their offensive against Mongolia by some will of God, essentially. They have a very limited army at their disposal, and they have not even damaged the city of Erdenet yet. To the south, I think the Qin have a great chance of taking the city of Nalaik, of course with Goryeo's assistance. Here we get a good look at Carthage's war against the Alawite Morocco. Not much is happening there, but we do get to see that in Europe, Prussia has made peace with England. With that minor interruption out of the way, let's return to see the city of Nalaik taking some very serious damage. It's already in yellow, and we might be able to see it fall within this scene. There are 2 opportunities for Qin to take the city, as there are 2 warriors, one very heavily damaged, adjacent to the city of Nalaik. We shall see whether the one defending the Great General even attacks, but oh, there it goes. And it is not enough to take the city of Nalaik, and the other warrior perishes in combat. We see that as Mongolia's turn passes, the city of Nalaik is still at very critical health. I don't think they're going to be able to defend the city for too much longer. They might be able to hold it for 1 turn or 2. Looking back at Karelia, we can see the Soviet Union is now trying to take the city of Rugarvi, thus splitting their offensive up slightly. However, they do still have a very significant amount of damage dealt to the city of Kimasharvi. We also see the Swedes attacking the city of Kiestinka. We have a very short scene here just to showcase that the Comanche are attempting in vain to defend the city of Yampirika. However, there's really not much of an invasion going on near that city anyways. So yeah. Turning over to Europe, we see that Ukraine is doing their best to maintain their offensive against Yugoslavia, as well as defending themselves against Ottoman forces to the south. This is a very interesting conflict because I feel Ukraine actually has a decent shot of succeeding in both areas. Moving on, we will see the final moments of the city of Elevala under Motu hands, as Australia besieging the city with archers first and then launching a warrior at 0 health. The city of Elevala now rests in Australian hands. Meanwhile, in South America, we see that the Makushi offensive is dying out, as a lot of their army rests near the city of Mataruka and Karasarai. Here we actually get a great scene of the Ottomans and their offensive against Ukraine. They actually have a decent army floating towards the city of Lviv, and for what it's worth, I am not sure if Ukraine will be able to defend the city. With that, we're back at the top of the turn order. As the Shawnee continue to defend against the Shoshone, we see that Prophetstown is going to be in increasing danger. The Shoshone, as I have mentioned, have an incredibly diverse army, but notably they have a big army as well. The Shawnee forces have been significantly deteriorating, and we can even see that near Mekochake, the city is facing several American units, while only being defended by 1 archer. As it stands, although America is not likely to make many gains in this war, I think the Shoshone can make significant land gains. Not only will they be able to take the city of Chillicothe, I predict they might even be able to take the city of Prophetstown, or even up north in Paistan. For the record, I have no clue how Paistan is pronounced. Back in Europe, we see that Karelia is still mounting their defense. I think they've honestly done a pretty good job defending their territory, all things considered, in this war. Losing Utuwa and Eunice was not a good defensive play. However, the fact they've managed to hold on to Kimasharvi and significantly reduce the Soviet invasion force, I think they might come out of this okay. Cutting over to Central Asia, I just want to show off Nahavand because we can see that the Khanty city of Kirtisiani to the north actually has a decent army near it, and the Khanty are still at war with the Apsherids. Turning over to America, we see that the United States have begun a siege of the city of Mequachake. Lest we not forget, they are still at war with Haiti. As we turn over to South Asia, we can see that Cyrus is continuing to defend Achaemenid lands from Vijayanagara forces. I am honestly unsure that this war is going to go very far at all, because just looking at the two territories of Vijayanagara and the Achaemenids, there is not much to fight over, as the borders between both those civilizations are very limited. Duchess Eleanor of Aquitaine returns to war with one of her former enemies, the Merchant Republic of Portugal under King Manuel I. Off to the side, we can also see that Buganda has made peace with Lesotho. Hopefully Aquitaine has learned their lesson from their previous war with Portugal, and learns to embark their units. As we come over back to China to see that the Qin dynasty finally makes their move against the city of Nalaik, and I do believe they will take the city this turn. And in fact, there it goes. With the city of Nalaik now captured by Qin forces under Emperor Shi Huang, I don't think there's much more that can be taken within this conflict as of right now. The city of Ugarvi taking some damage from Soviet forces. This really just seems to be the last cry of war from the Soviets as they attempt to take an easier city to capture, but if you look at the terrain around Ugarvi, this might be a serious mistake by Stalin. As we turn over to Ukraine, we can see on the side, not only has Mongolia made peace with Qin, thus securing their loss in that war as they cannot take the city of Nalaik, they have faced a new enemy with a new declaration coming in from the Yakuts. The Yakuts, based in one of the coldest cities on Earth, the city of Yakutsk, is definitely an imposing force for Mongolia to be against as of this moment in time, as Tigandar Khan is a fierce, brutal Khan. We will discuss that more as it becomes relevant later on, but for now, let us take a look at how Ukraine is faring, as we can see they are continuing to besiege the Yugoslav city of Skopje and fending off against the Ottoman naval forces with their own navy. Yes, they are finally building triremes. While I'm here and there's a bit of a lull in the action as Ukraine still attempts to take Skopje despite Yugoslavia's intervention to the contrary. What I want to say is that, first off, I am very sorry for the numerous delays that have plagued this episode and its creation. I do expect the series to continue as normal within the near future, but for now, there might be another delay between this episode and the next. However, it should not be as bad as between this episode and the previous. I will be honest about the delays and say I've been having a rough go of life. And that's partially why each episode I tend to ask the viewers, hey, would you do me the kindness to subscribe, leave a like, and comment down below? It really does help me see that viewers are engaged with the series and want to see more. All that out of the way, we are beginning to see that the Shoshone are conducting a full-scale offensive on the city of Chillicothe. Or, I believe in Shawnee it's actually pronounced Chillicothe. Chillicothe, of course, is a very good city to grab this early on, and the Shoshone have done a tremendous job besieging it down to red health. Moving on, we see the Vijayanagara and Achaemenid forces continuing to battle it out in South Asia. Off to the side, I also want to bring attention to the fact that the Aztecs under Tlacaelel have declared war upon the Shawnee, joining in on an already stacked declaration against the Shawnee Confederation. Let us begin one of my famous world tours as we can get a good look at Teateaneng, which was captured by Buganda from the Lesotho. To the northwest, we get a good look at Ndongo Matamba, led by Anna Nzinga herself. To the southwest, we see Lesotho, with their new capture of Mbewe from the Kingdom of Maravi, led by none other than Kalonga Masala. Africa, of course, is very populous, and we see even more civilizations that are quite expansive, such as Egypt under Hatshepsut, and of course Carthage to the west under Hannibal. I just want to show off this shot of England, led by Henry VIII. They have some major settlements up north in Scotland. Moving on, we can see Karelia's current conflict with the Soviet Union. Hopefully they can recover their Aeonis. Moving on, let's see how Japan is shaping up, as Japan has been pretty quiet thus far, but that has given them ample opportunity to grow. Japan is led by none other than Toyotomi Hideyoshi. Here is an overarching shot of the Shawnee Confederation at its glorious height. We can see that they have some new cities as well, with the settlement of Skotash to the south, and of course, Beistan to the north. To the Shawnee's northeast, we get a good look at Canada in red and brown. Not the most charming colors in my opinion. Down in South America, we get a look at the Shuar under Kiruba and the Makushi under Bernardino Jose Pedro. In South Asia, we see the Vijayanagara Empire under Krishna Devaraya. I think they have a really pretty color scheme with their orange on orange. Over in Europe, we see in Scandinavia the Swedes and their empire proper. They have of course been besieging Karelia and trying to take their cities to no avail. As the action begins once more, we get a great look at the Shoshone threat placed upon the Shawnee. The Shawnee are continuing to defend their main settlement of Prophetstown, but the Shoshone might absolutely overwhelm the city of Chillicothe with pure numbers. To the south, we did see the Aztecs declare war previously, and we can see that the Shawnee have a new settlement of Skotash, which is now under Aztec threat. To the east, we see Mequachake is facing a coalition of American forces. The United States of America are also facing a siege on their own turf, with the city of Chicago facing a naval assault from Haitians under Papadoc Duvalier. There is a lot to cover here, and of course, I have barely even begun to scratch the surface. There is a large Canadian force gathering up north to the northeast of Mequachake, which could potentially pose a huge threat to the Shawnee if they decide to join the conflict. Over in Karelia, we see that the Karelians are doing a great job of defending their territory from the now scattered Soviet forces. While the Soviets are trying to regroup around the city of Rugarvi, I don't think they're doing that great of a job, honestly. While things are currently looking fairly grim for Uki Vainamoinen and the Karelians, perhaps this is a light to break the shadow that has fallen upon them. Over to the far east, we can see Mongolia, having lost their city of Nalaik, seeks to reclaim their lands, sending a settler to the northeast. However, if you recall, they are at war with the Yakuts as well, meaning that settler heading to the northeast might be in grave peril. We shall see. We return to South Asia to see Vijayanagara and their Caymanids once again in conflict, but I also want to showcase how well the Mughals are doing with their empire. They have built up quite a significant state with the puppet of Hamadan, and of course their northern annexed city now of Damgan. We return to North America just to get a good look at the Comanche to see that they have founded this religion of Peyoteism, and they have been spreading it to the Shawnee lands. In the way far north, we can see that the city of Moron, yes, I'm going to call it that despite it not being the correct pronunciation, has converted to Tengri. In South America, we honestly don't see much religion at all right now. However, keep in mind the Shuar are a religious civilization, and I do believe they founded a religion of their own, but we have not seen it expand yet. We also see that the Makushi are facing a naval siege from Brazil in their city of Parara. Over in Europe, we can see that Ukraine has settled the fascinating settlement of Zaporizhia, which is not directly bordering any other Ukrainian settlement, but is bordering a lot of the Yugoslav core. It is a bold move, and I don't know if it's going to pay off for them, but we shall see in the long run. That said, I do want to bring attention, we are getting very close to the end of the episode. There are only 2 scenes left after this, so I just want to say, from the bottom of my heart, thank you so much everyone for watching and continuing to support this series. I have put a tremendous amount of effort into making sure everyone gets the content that they want to see, and I, again, have suffered numerous delays in the production of this episode. In the penultimate scene, we see that the Kingdom of Moravi is still at war with Lesotho. This war is not going very far, however. With all that out of the way, we are going to see the Shawnee city of Chillicothe fall to Shoshone forces in the very last scene of this episode. Let's watch. Thank you so much everyone for watching. My name is Kazia. The Kazia in Raja Kazia is in fact me. I appreciate you so much, and be sure to leave a like, comment, and subscribe down below. Signing off. Bye-bye.